Welcome back to PASC23 on stage, and I'm here with Peter Messmer of NVIDIA in Switzerland. Peter, I figured since this is just between you and me and a few 10,000 people on the internet, being from NVIDIA, can't you tell us all the details about Grace Hopper? We promised not to spread it.
I would be more than happy to. And actually, given that Grace and Hopper is now generally available, yeah, we should talk about all those details. But I guess it might be a bit too technical for the 5 minutes that we have allotted here. And so, yeah, let's defer this to a next one.
On your minisymposium you just organized on energy efficiency. What's that about?
Right, so the title of the minisymposium was about energy application optimization in an energy-constrained environment. I think the energy crisis last year has demonstrated just very obviously that there's situations where we need to be a bit aware of the energy that we're consuming, even in a scientific computing space. Also, now with the exascale systems pushing whatever 30 megawatts and beyond that, we are considering, or we need to be aware of where can we go next with the applications. And there is most likely still a lot of energy that's left on the table by not properly optimizing the applications. And so the goal of the minisymposium was really to bring people together to understand what can we do from an applications point of view, but also what needs to be given to us as application developers from the HPC centers. What kind of tools do we need, and in order to give sufficient information to the application developers so that they can tune their applications.
And this sounds great in theory, and it's super important, but of course, tune here has a somewhat different meaning than it used to have 10 years ago, right? Tuning here is going to mean that my application will run a bit slower.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's a hard sell to many users. If you give me a choice, I can push the fast button or the slow button. I'm not going to pick the slow button spontaneously.
Definitely not spontaneously, but I think that's an important part at the moment, is that we need to figure out, first of all, what information can we collect? Right? And what are the knobs that we even can influence? And then how much is the impact of tuning those knobs onto my application? Right? If it's just a blank out question as you posted, like, are you willing to let your application run slower? Yeah, most people will not, because they don't know how much slower it's going to run. But if there's a way of predicting and initially measuring it and then predicting it, that's going to be helpful, and maybe then people are willing to say, yeah, I don't need the fastest time to solution for my application.
And maybe also providing them with some explicit carrot for accepting somewhat lower performance, right?
Right. That's then a question of policy that's implemented at the individual centers. And yes, one could imagine that in some cases there might even be some situations where, I don't know, if you're flexible regarding your time to solution, that you get different priorities in the queues than if you're saying, no, I need to have this application to run at maximum performance.
So do you feel that there were any particular common themes among these 4 presentations or take-home messages? Did you learn anything in particular from this?
So I think what was demonstrated again, well, let me just briefly recap what we had in terms of the presentations. We had a presentation from the data center perspective, right? That was about what do we measure at the node level, at the rack level, and so on, and how do we present it to the users. Then we had a presentation about really bottoms-up understanding what is the impact of changing the frequencies or using special functions in my application. Then we had a presentation that said, we need to look at the entire workflow. It's not enough if we just focus on one application and tune that one for energy efficiency, but it has to be the full thing. And the last presentation was about using special hardware, for instance, like not just GPUs and CPUs, which are common today, but rather looking into FPGAs or even ASICs. And so I think the common theme was that, there's multiple ways of solving the energy efficiency question, but we need the information to determine what are the paths that we want to take to tune those knobs. And it was one part that I felt was really interesting was the first 2 presentations, which was really top down and bottoms up, right? And then there was also a question from the audience that was asking, well, okay, the second presenter, you've now shown us all these low level analyses of individual kernels and really showed the trade-offs. How about the full application, right? What happens at the full application level? And it's really an open question. How do you do that? If you have a complex application, let's take a weather and climate code, right, with gazillions of different kernels, a complex workflow, in some cases even with a finite time budget for time to solution. How do you analyze that, and how do you present this information? And I think that's one of the places that was identified as something that we still need to work also as a community between the data center people and the applications people and the hardware providers to figure out what are the metrics that are really going to be useful for the end users or the application developers to tune the applications for energy.
Well, that sounds exceptionally important. So based on this, do you see any obvious next step that what should we meet and talk about next year? What should we do?
Exactly. So I think we also had a brief call to action at the end of the minisymposium and said, hey, at last we want to have another minisymposium next year at PASC, but maybe there's also opportunities for workshops in between. But I think we still need to gather more information collectively. What can be, right? What do we need to what applications have worked? Where did it was it successful? How much impact can we have in terms of energy efficiency? And what are the tools that people have at their disposal nowadays? So I think there's a lot of material that we can pieces that we can learn and share with others.
Thank you so much, Peter. Lots of important work, and it's going to be very important for Alps coming up to where we will actually get to use the super tips finally. I'm looking forward to it.
That's going to be exciting. Yes. Absolutely. We're looking forward to it as well. Thank you, Eric.
And thank you very much for your attention. We're going to be back.